That was the police. 29 minutes to 12. This is BFM 100.3. We're sitting here talking to Madonna, talking all natural therapies.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. And they also did, so we're talking Aspergers, ASD, autism, and one of the bizarre things that they found in teeth of kids with autism, they found lower amounts of magnesium and zinc, and they found higher amounts of lead. Now, we know lead is linked with things like ADHD. They did a big study on kids from Mount Isa. There's 2 mining towns in Australia, and those 2 towns have the highest levels of ADHD, so attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. Yep. So they know that these heavy metals cause problems, and they've known that for a long, long time, so that's not a surprise. But it's the incidence that's really increasing. I think ADHD is only 1 in like 12, 14 kids. I suppose even that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot, but yeah, it's interesting to, when you bring the numbers up, for us to actually think about it.
Yeah, whereas asthma's 1 in 8.
Yeah.
You know, so we've just, and allergies are 1 in 6. So kids just aren't as healthy as they used to be. I don't know whether you remember at school, but I know in my class, because I had the same class from grade 1 to grade 7, I had 1 epileptic kid in the class, I had 1 kid who got migraines, and I don't really remember any allergies. You know, anything where people had to avoid anything, like there just wasn't. Yeah. So, you know, you sort of think about this and you go, okay, so what's the difference these days when it's like 1 in 6 kids with allergies? And of course, allergies are linked in with the gut. Because allergies are generally with the foods, it's the proteins that we're having an issue with. This can be a big thing in these ASD and autistic kids as well. And once again, it's not something that's... okay, so maybe I shouldn't say allergies. I probably should say intolerances instead. Because when people think allergies, they think the swollen throat. They think, that those solid signs that people see. Whereas an intolerance can create all of the inflammatory symptoms of the gut and the immune system without the physical symptoms that we see on the out, like hives and things like that. So with intolerances, you can have intolerances to, say, dairy and wheat, 2 big things, because the proteins have been manipulated over the last decades.
Yeah.
So there was a guy from Melbourne who also is an accidental specialist in autism, because he was working with kids' guts and just tended to get these good results. And he was looking at the lectins in wheat and dairy, so lectins, and lectins are a natural pesticide that's in a lot of foods, but scientists have genetically modified a lot of our grains and seeds to have between 10 and 100 times the amount of these lectins in them, so that the idea was that we would need less pesticides on these foods. But of course, this is like a few decades away. Bugs are cleverer than we think they are, so now we're using 3 to 6 times the amount of pesticides on them than before we genetically modified those grains. Now, the problem with lectins is that there's research showing that lectins destroy the villi in the intestines. So the villi are basically, you know, you've got a mucus layer around the villi, it is involved in enzyme production, hormone production. They now are considering the microbiome in the gut a hormonal endocrine organ. So they know that when the gut is out of whack, our hormones can be out of whack. Once again, nothing happens in the body without hormones and enzymes. So something's going on. So with these lectins, the lectins, particularly in the wheat, if dairy cows eat the wheat as part of their food, then there's lectins in the dairy, so that's why it's in the dairy. So when you buy organic milk, for example, you can't feed an organic cow non-organic foods. So the foods that when you're buying organic dairy milk, these cows are having an organic diet, so therefore they're not getting the lectins from the grains. So it makes quite a big difference. So that's why probably they've accidentally found that kids who go off, say, dairy and wheat get better improvement with their gut-brain connection.
And we see that too quite a lot in a lot of advertisements, how, you know, wheat and dairy do affect certain things, and our bodies cope very differently from it. So it's very interesting to know that relationship between the two.
Yeah, so the lectins is a part of it. The other thing is that there's something called, so when you've got the bad bacteria in the gut, the gliadin from wheat and the casein from dairy can actually become an opioid in the gut. Once again, you've got to have the perfect storm for this to happen. But it's, once again, pay attention to behaviour in yourself as well as your family. But if you find that you eat dairy or wheat and then you feel exhausted afterwards, imagine everything on, say, the cocaine spectrum. You can get high as a kite, you can fall asleep at the drop of a hat. So because it's really pumping those adrenal hormones. So if you're giving some food to a child and they want to fall asleep afterward, that could be an opioid effect from what you're giving them. So, and it's a bit of a weird thing, but they're called casein opioids and gliadin opioids. And those opioids happen because of bad bacteria in the gut. The liver's unable to metabolize the proteins from the foods, and so the chain actually becomes longer into an opioid.
Hence the lethargy.
Yeah, exactly.
Tired and bombed out.
Yeah, and then the kids just, you sort of think the kids have some depression or some, you think, tired. And you think, they're just a bit lackluster. But, if this is going on for months or years on end, there's something going on. And how many kids, this opioid effect creates an addiction.
Yeah.
So they might be addicted to dairy and they're just eating 5 cupfuls a day.
And this is something that neither parent or child or person that has autism that is being affected, it might not necessarily know about it. It could be just something they assume that happens every day and it's normal, but it might not be. Yeah.
And they might consider it part of the part of the problem. So, for example, there's a state in America where kids with Down syndrome, so the TSH, so thyroid stimulating hormone in Australia, our range is somewhere between 0.5 and 5.5.
Yeah.
Is considered normal. Naturopathically, we like it to be more around 2, just by the way. But anyway, in America, there's one state where if your child has Down syndrome, they allow the TSH to be 33 before looking at it. Now, if you or I had a TSH of 33 in Australia, we'd be on drugs quick as anything. We would be into the specialist. We would, there is no way any doctor would look at a TSH of 33. So they just considered a low thyroid function to be part of the Down syndrome issue. But these kids, you put them on thyroxine, their whole life changes. Mm-hmm. So in America, the functional medicine doctors, they take that very, very seriously. So once again, it's sort of always having that second person looking at those blood tests. Sort of, don't forget, people look at them differently. Some people are just looking for disease. Other people are looking for the healthy, the actual healthy range.
Yeah, so it's a good thing after they've been to their GP and they've had all the initial testing done and the confirmation and the diagnosis, that it's good for people like yourself to have a look at it if they want to do that natural therapy, and it does work. It is effective. It's been very effective for a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to be back in just a minute. We're going to go for a quick song now. We're going to listen to Whitney Houston's How Will I Know? Mm. I'm sure if you went and saw Madonna, you'll know. This is Bay FM 100.3.